Kandahar Province, Afghanistan, October 2022. The scope's reticle settled on the woman's chest. Lieutenant Audrey Brennan controlled her breathing the way she'd been trained.
As you can see from the layout, our strategic positioning allows for optimal response times and resource allocation across the region.
847 meters. The laser rangefinder never lied. Below her position, the Kandahar market pulsed with afternoon life. Women in burqas navigated between stalls, piled with pomegranates and bolts of bright fabric. Children darted through the crowd, their laughter carrying up to the rooftop where Audrey lay prone. Old men clustered in patches of shade, drinking tea and solving the world's problems one argument at a time. Normal, peaceful, fragile as spun glass. The woman in Audrey's crosshairs moved differently than the shoppers around her. Her gait was rigid mechanical. The bulk beneath her traditional clothing created an unnatural silhouette. 25 years old and 3 deployments deep, Audrey recognized the signs. The fixed stare, the lips forming silent prayers, the clenched fists, one hand already gripping the detonator. Wind steady, 2 mils left correction. Staff Sergeant Garrett Hollis spoke from beside her, his voice carrying the same easy confidence whether he was ordering coffee or calling a shot that would end a human life. Range confirmed at 847. You're green, Brennan. This would be Audrey's 11th kill. She'd enlisted at 19 chasing something she couldn't articulate. Her father had been a Vietnam Marine who drowned his memories in bottles until his liver quit. He died when she was 20, never having spoken a word about the war. Her husband, Major Isaac Brennan, had been killed in Fallujah 2 years ago, leaving her with a 3-year-old daughter named Claire and a folded flag in a display case. And she had Garrett Hollis, who'd taught her that being a sniper meant more than marksmanship. It meant carrying what came after. Target approaching critical density. Garrett's eye never left the spotting scope. 40, maybe 50 civilians in the blast radius when that vest cooks off. Audrey's finger found the trigger. She didn't press yet, just felt the cold metal, the slight give before the break point. The M40A5 had been Garrett's before he'd given it to her 6 months ago. She knew the rifle better than she knew herself. Every scratch on the stock, every nuance. It's action. The woman stopped walking. Dead center of the market. Surrounded by people whose only crime was needing food, needing fabric, needing the small normalcies that made life bearable in a war zone. Her hand moved toward her chest, toward the trigger that would turn her into shrapnel and fire. Wind shift, 2.3 mils now, adjust. Audrey's hands moved automatically. The correction was instinct by now. Muscle memory, built through thousands of rounds downrange. Her pulse dropped below 60. The world contracted to the scope, the target, the mathematics of death. She pressed the trigger. The rifle's recoil was familiar, almost comforting. The suppressor reduced the crack to a cough, but Audrey felt it resonate through her bones. She always did. 1.3 seconds of flight time, subsonic, precise. The round struck exactly where she'd aimed. Center mass, textbook. The woman crumpled, then exploded. The dead man's switch had been active all along. The instant her finger released pressure, the vest detonated. Through the scope, Audrey watched the fireball consume the market's center. Bodies lifted, tumbled, disintegrated. The shockwave rippled outward, toppling stalls and shattering windows. Black smoke mushroomed into the Afghan sky. Perfect shot. 6 dead anyway. Screaming rose from the chaos below. People running clothes on fire. Others searching for family members who'd ceased to exist as coherent matter. Audrey's hands remained on the rifle, but she couldn't close her eyes. Couldn't look away from what her perfect shot had accomplished. Not on you. Garrett's calm had fractured. You made the shot, Brennan. Did everything right. You understand me, you made the shot. Audrey managed a nod. Her throat had closed. Words wouldn't come. 2 of the dead were children. She'd seen them through the scope before pulling the trigger. We need to displace. Hostiles will triangulate our... The RPG hit the building's corner. Audrey felt Garrett's weight slam into her, driving her backward. The explosion was a physical thing, a pressure wave that crushed the air from her lungs. Concrete and rebar became shrapnel. Something hot tore through her left leg, and she heard herself screaming, though the sound seemed to come from someone else. When the dust thinned enough to see, Garrett was on top of her, not moving. Garrett! Her voice sounded underwater, muffled by the ringing in her ears. "We need to move." She pushed at his shoulder. He rolled off her. The blood came from everywhere at once. Shrapnel had opened his neck and chest. Arterial spray painted the rooftop. His eyes were open, focused on the sky. His mouth moved, forming words his ruined throat couldn't shape. Audrey pressed her hands against the wounds, but the blood just flowed around her fingers, hot and slick and endless. "Medic, I need a fucking medic up here." Garrett's hand found hers. The grip was weak, getting weaker. "Not on you, kid." The words bubbled through her blood. "You made the shot. That's all. That's all we can do." "Don't." Audrey was crying now, tears cutting tracks through the dust on her face. "Don't you dare leave me, Garrett." His grip loosened further. "Every shot carries a soul." His eyes found hers. "Remember?" Then nothing. Audrey held him while gunfire echoed from the streets below. Held him while medics arrived and checked for a pulse they wouldn't find. Held him until someone physically pulled her away, her hands red to the elbows, his blood drying in the creases of her palms. She never touched a rifle again. Arlington, Virginia, January 10th, 2026, 6:47. The alarm read 6:47 when Audrey woke. She'd been conscious for the past hour, watching shadows shift across the ceiling. The nightmare never changed. Garrett's blood, the market screaming, the woman's face serene in those final seconds before the bullet arrived. Her left leg ached as she sat up. January cold always found the shrapnel scars. The bedroom was regulation neat bed, already made with hospital corners, dress uniform hanging pressed on the closet door. The ribbons caught what little light filtered through the curtains. Silver star, Purple Heart, bronze stars, Army commendation medals. None of them mattered as much as the rifle mounted on the opposite wall. The display case held Garrett's M40A5, the brass plaque underneath the reading SSG Garrett Hollis, 1984, 2022. She'd left off the rest of his final words. They were hers to carry, not for public display. "Mommy." Claire stood in the doorway, 6 years old, in unicorn pajamas, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd had since birth. She had Isaac's eyes, Isaac's stubborn jawline, all the features Audrey saw in her dreams of a man who died before his daughter drew her first breath. "Hey, baby girl." Audrey manufactured a smile. "Early bird today." Claire climbed onto the bed, still small enough to fit perfectly against Audrey's side. "You look scared." Children noticed everything adults tried to hide. "Just thinking about work." Audrey smoothed her daughter's hair. "The Pentagon talk. That one, yes." "Daddy went to the Pentagon lots." Claire's voice held no sadness, just the matter-of-fact tone children used for discussing the dead. "Before he went to heaven." Isaac had been killed 8 years ago. Claire had been born 3 months later, knowing her father only through photographs and stories, through the flag triangle in the living room. "He loved his work," Audrey said. "Do you?" The question was more complex than a 6-year-old could know. Audrey had loved being a sniper once, the precision, the intellectual challenge, the knowledge that her skill saved lives. Before Kandahar, before Garrett, before she'd learned that perfect shots could still produce perfect horror. "I love serving," Audrey said. "That's what counts." Claire accepted this with a squeeze. "Uncle Garrett's watching today, from heaven with Daddy." Audrey's throat constricted. "Yeah, baby, I think so too." They sat together as dawn grew stronger. 2 people missing others who'd never return. At 0800, Audrey stood before her bathroom mirror in her underwear. 28 years old, looking 35. The scar on her left shoulder. Fallujah, around that mist, killing her by 2 inches. The marks on her leg, Kandahar, the day Garrett died. Burns on her right arm from a Mosul IED. 3 deployments had left their signatures in flesh and nerve. The invisible scars ran deeper. Her hands were steady as she dressed. Button the shirt, align the collar, pin each ribbon in its designated position. The silver star on top, earned in Fallujah during a firefight, she barely remembered all chaos and gunfire, and Isaac's voice on the radio, before silence replaced it. The Purple Heart marked Kandahar. They gave you one for bleeding. Nothing for the wounds that didn't show. Her phone buzzed. Colonel Marissa Davis. Good luck today. You've got this. Unknown number. Looking forward to your brief. Young officers need to hear from someone who's been there. LTC Reeves. Margaret. Kick-ass little sis. Make Dad proud. Audrey reached for her shoes. The uniform fit like it was tailored yesterday. She checked the mirror one final time, adjusting her cover to the perfect angle. The woman reflected back looked like a recruiting poster. Pressed, polished, professional. Nothing like the 25-year-old who'd watched her mentor bleed out in Afghan dust. You look pretty, Mommy. Claire appeared in the doorway, already dressed for school. The neighbor handled morning drop-off when Audrey had early duty. Think I'll scare the generals? Audrey knelt difficult in the tight skirt. Claire giggled. Generals aren't scary. You are. Am I now? Mrs. Peterson says you're a hero. Mrs. Peterson taught first grade and had never been closer to combat than a Memorial Day parade. She didn't understand what the word hero actually cost. Mrs. Peterson is kind, Audrey said carefully. But I'm just a soldier, like many others. Did you save people like Daddy? The question landed like a fist. I tried. Then you're a hero. Absolute certainty, the way only children could manage. Claire wrapped her arms around Audrey's neck. Be brave like Daddy and Uncle Garrett. Audrey held her daughter and tried not to think about the briefing room, about the photos in her presentation, about standing before combat veterans and admitting she couldn't do the job anymore, that 3 years ago, something inside her had broken beyond repair. I'll try, she whispered into Claire's hair. The Pentagon appeared through morning traffic like a concrete mountain. Audrey had been here dozens of times, but the building never failed to intimidate. Too many stars. Too many people who'd never had to make the impossible choice through a scope. She reviewed her notes during the drive, though she'd memorized the presentation weeks ago. Sniper operations in urban combat, psychological impact, and moral injury. 23 slides. 45 minutes of speaking, 15 for questions. The topic was deliberate. Mental health was finally getting attention in military circles. But the old guard still saw it as weakness. Generals who'd built careers in the Cold War and Desert Storm didn't understand PTSD, didn't want to understand. They'd learned in an era when you swallowed the pain and drove on. Audrey was going to make them understand anyway. Security took 15 minutes, despite her military ID. The guards were polite but thorough. Inside the corridors stretched infinite and sterile. Officers moved with purpose in every direction. Audrey checked her phone. 1,300 hours, 1 hour until showtime. Colonel Davis, conference room 3B. I'll meet you there at 13:30. Audrey found the room empty and dark. She needed the silence, needed to breathe, needed to remember why this mattered. The presentation equipment was ready. She connected her laptop and pulled up the slides. The title screen glowed, Sniper Operations in Urban Combat, Psychological Impact, and Moral Injury. LT Audrey Brennan. She clicked that through slowly. Statistics on PTSD rates among snipers. Graphs correlating confirmed kills with moral injury. Photographs of soldiers in VA treatment facilities. And near the end, one slide reading simply, Case Study, Personal Experience. That was the one she'd been dreading, where she'd have to tell her story. Audrey closed the laptop and sat head in her hands. You okay, Lieutenant? Colonel Davis stood in the doorway, uniform immaculate. At 48, she had the presence that made junior officers straighten their spines. She'd commanded a battalion in Iraq, earned a Distinguished Service Cross for actions still classified. She was also the only person who'd really pushed for this briefing. Nervous, Audrey admitted. Davis sat across from her. Good, means you care. She paused. You don't have to do this. If it's too much, I can present. No, Audrey shook her head. It needs to come from someone who's lived it. You sure the old guard will listen? Probably not. A thin smile. But maybe some younger officers will. That's enough. Davis nodded. General Castellane is coming. Audrey's stomach dropped. Victor Castellane. The same, Marine legend, 30 years of service, 3 presidents. And he's got strong opinions about women in combat. Fantastic. He keeps them professional, mostly, but he asks hard questions. Davis leaned forward. Audrey, if he pushes, don't back down. You earned your place. You earned your voice. Audrey thought about Garrett's blood, about the Kandahar screaming, about 3 years and 3 months of frozen trigger fingers and shaking hands. I know, she said quietly. Davis checked her watch. Room fills at 13:45. Ready. No, Audrey thought, but she nodded. Pentagon Conference Room 3B, 1400 hours. The room was packed. Audrey stood at the front, watching officers file in. They sorted themselves by rank and branch. Army left Marines, right Navy, and Air Force filling gaps. Brass everywhere. More stars than Audrey had encountered in her entire career. She noticed the younger officers first. Late 20s, early 30s. Captains and first lieutenants from Iraq and Afghanistan. They smiled, nodded encouragement. A few offered subtle thumbs-ups. Then the old guard. They occupied the third and fourth rows like a wall. Silver hair and hard expressions. Men in their 50s and 60s who'd built careers in different wars. Cold War, Desert Storm. The generation who remembered when women weren't allowed in combat at all. And centered among them, General Victor Castellane. 62, according to his bio. 3 stars, a chest full of ribbons that made Audrey's look modest. Arms crossed, jaw set. He looked exactly like her father had when someone said something he disagreed with. Audrey's hands began shaking. She gripped the podium. At precisely 1400, Davis called the room to attention. Everyone rose as one. At ease. Please be seated. The room settled. 47 officers, all watching. Gentlemen and ladies, Davis began, thank you for being here. We're privileged to have Lieutenant Audrey Brennan discussing sniper operations in urban environments with focus on the psychological cost these missions exact. She gestured to Audrey. Lieutenant Brennan served 3 combat deployments in Fallujah, Kandahar, and Mosul. She completed 217 combat missions and earned a Silver Star Purple Heart and multiple Valor Commendations. She's one of the Army's most experienced female snipers. Davis paused, making eye contact with the older officers. She's here to share lessons that can help us better support our soldiers. I ask for your full attention and respect. Silence. Davis sat. Audrey stepped to the podium. Good afternoon. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. Thank you, Colonel Davis, and thank you all. She clicked the remote. The title slide appeared. Today I'll discuss something we don't address enough in tactical circles. Not the mechanics of sniping, though we'll touch on that. Not equipment or training protocols. But cost. The human cost of asking soldiers to look through a scope at another human being and make a choice that echoes forever. A few officers shifted. Castellane's expression remained neutral. Audrey clicked to a graph. Studies show snipers experience PTSD at rates 15 to 20% higher than other combat specialties. The reasons are complex, but they reduce to one truth: distance doesn't create emotional distance. Often it makes things worse. She walked them through the data. Moral injury statistics. Research on psychological impacts of confirmed kills. Studies showing urban snipers had the highest rates of post-combat mental health issues. 15 minutes in, she noticed Castellane was no longer watching the screen. He was watching her. His expression had shifted from neutral to something harder. Skeptical. Dismissive. Audrey kept talking, but her grip on the podium tightened. At 20 minutes, he raised his hand. The room tensed. Everyone knew Castellane's reputation for dismantling presentations with surgical precision. Audrey nodded. General Castellane? He stood slowly, deliberately. Let the silence stretch. Lieutenant? His voice carried command authority. Interesting statistics, but I'm curious about your personal combat experience. Your actual time downrange. Not a question, a challenge. 3 deployments, sir. Fallujah 2017 to 2018. Kandahar 2019 to 2020. Mosul in 2021, 22 months total in combat zones. And your mission count? 217. Yes, sir. Castellane nodded like he was processing, but Audrey saw the setup coming. Significant experience, he said, tone suggesting otherwise. And your confirmed kills, Lieutenant? How many enemy combatants have you personally eliminated? Complete silence. Asking about kill counts violated unwritten rules. It reduced complex trauma to scorekeeping, turned human beings into statistics. Most combat veterans refused to discuss it. But Castellane waited, eyebrows raised, daring her to answer or retreat. Audrey felt every eye on her. Her hands behind the podium were shaking again, not from fear, from the weight of what she was about to say. She met his gaze. 11, sir. 11 confirmed kills. The number hung in the air like an indictment. Castellane's smile widened without warmth. He nodded thoughtfully, playing to the room. 11, he repeated, letting it settle. Well, that's certainly modest. Someone coughed in the back. A few officers looked away. In my day, Castellane continued, snipers accumulated numbers that actually mattered. Carlos Hathcock, 93, confirmed kills in Vietnam. Chris Kyle, 160 in Iraq. Chuck Mawhinney, 103. These are the legends who defined the profession. He paused for effect. Perhaps, he said, with poisonous courtesy, your perspective on sniper psychology is somewhat limited, given your relatively modest contribution to our nation's defense. The words hit like rounds. Several officers frowned. Some younger ones looked angry, but nobody spoke. Challenging a 3-star general was career suicide. Audrey stood perfectly still. Her hands had stopped shaking. She waited. Let the uncomfortable silence build. Let the room's tension demand resolution. Then she stepped away from the podium, walked to the center where everyone could see her. Permission to elaborate on those 11, sir? Her voice was calm, almost conversational. Castellane, clearly not expecting this, gestured vaguely. By all means. Audrey turned slightly, making eye contact around the room, including him in the audience now, not giving him special status. March 2017, Fallujah. I was 23 months into my first deployment. An insurgent with an RPG positioned outside a school. He aimed at a bus. 43 children were on that bus heading home. She paused. 412 meters. 8-mile-per-hour crosswind. I was with Staff Sergeant Garrett Hollis, my spotter. He talked me through the corrections. Another pause. Let them visualize. I fired. The insurgent dropped. The children went home to their families. She saw several officers nodding. I vomited afterward, right there on the rooftop. Couldn't stop shaking. My husband was alive then, Major Isaac Brennan. He held me while I cried and said I'd done right, that 43 families still had their children because of me. Her voice never wavered. Kill number 2. Fallujah 2 weeks later. Suicide bomber, approaching a checkpoint. 4 Americans manning that position. 623 meters. I made the shot. The bomber detonated far enough away that nobody else died. She moved through them methodically. 3, 4, 5 through 10. Each one a story. Each one lived saved. Each one a weight she'd carry forever. The room was absolutely silent. Castellane had sat down. Kill number 7. Her voice cracked slightly. September 2022. Kandahar. We had intelligence on an IED trigger man. I was in Overwatch when I spotted him. 967 meters out, moving toward an American patrol. She swallowed. A sandstorm was rolling in. Visibility dropping fast. Maybe 30 seconds before I lost the shot completely. Her hands clenched. I fired. Dropped him at 967 in near zero visibility. The IED never detonated. The patrol made it home safe. She looked directly at Castellane. The patrol leader was Captain Nathaniel Castellane. The general's face went blank. Audrey held his gaze, then continued. And kill number 11. Her voice finally broke. October 2022, Kandahar Market. A woman wearing a suicide vest moving through the crowd toward the densest section. 40, maybe 50 civilians in blast radius. The words came faster. 847 meters. Staff Sergeant Hollis was my spotter. We'd worked together 3 years. He was the best soldier I knew. The best man. Tears formed, but she didn't wipe them. I made the shot. Perfect center mass. The woman dropped. She stopped. Breathed. Her vest had a dead man switch. The instant she released pressure, it detonated. 6 civilians died. 2 were children. The room had gone from silent to something deeper. The blast collapsed part of our building. Staff Sergeant Hollis threw himself over me to shield me from the shrapnel. He took the hits meant for me. Audrey's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. He died in my arms. And his last words were, "Not your fault. You made the shot. That's all we can do." She wiped her eyes once quickly. That was 3 years and 3 months ago, General Castellane. I haven't fired a weapon since. Every time I try, my hands shake so badly I can't aim. I see Garrett's face. I see those children. I see every single one of those 11 people I killed. Her voice strengthened. So you're right, sir. My number is modest compared to Hathcock, Kyle, Mohini. They were warriors, heroes. I'll never match their records. She stepped toward him. But I know something they might not have known. Or maybe they knew it too well, which is why their stories often ended badly. Another step. Every one of those shots still lives inside me. I remember faces, weather, exact distances, what I thought before firing, what I felt after. She stopped directly before him. I didn't take those shots to build a reputation, sir. I didn't take them for history books. I took them to bring my team home alive. To save civilians who had no idea they were in danger. Her voice softened, but everyone heard every word. Some nights I wish my number was 0. I wish I lived in a world where my training was never needed, where I could have stayed home with my daughter and never looked through a scope at another human being. She straightened to attention. But I don't choose the world, sir. I only choose how I serve in it. And I chose to serve by making sure every shot counted, by coming home with my humanity intact, even if it meant carrying weight most people can't imagine. The silence was different now, not uncomfortable, heavy with recognition. Audrey turned from Castellane, addressing the room. That's why I stopped at 11. Not because I lost nerve, not because I couldn't handle the job, but because I found something more important than being the best sniper in the world. She looked at each face. I found my conscience. And that conscience tells me if we're going to ask soldiers to do this job, to carry these burdens, we owe them more than marksmanship training and medals. We owe them the support they need to come home whole. She walked back to the podium. That's what this briefing is about. Not weakness, not excuses, but acknowledging the truth every combat veteran knows, but we don't discuss enough. Her hands rested steady on the podium now. The truest measure of a warrior isn't how many enemies they've defeated. It's what they do with the weight afterward, whether they find meaning in the sacrifice, whether they can look their children in the eye and explain why it was worth it. Audrey picked up the remote. Now, if there are no other questions about my qualifications, I'd like to continue. For 5 full seconds, nobody moved. Then Colonel Davis stood and started clapping. Slowly, deliberately. Her hands coming together in sharp cracks that echoed. One by one, others joined. Young officers first rising to their feet, then older ones, then more. Within 30 seconds, the entire room was standing and applauding. Not polite acknowledgement, something deeper. Recognition, respect. General Castellane remained seated, hands in his lap. His face had gone pale. The applause continued almost a minute before dying. Officers sat. The room's mood had completely transformed. Davis caught Audrey's eye and nodded. To his credit, Castellane stood. The room tensed. Lieutenant Brennan? His voice was rough. I spoke out of turn, allowed old assumptions to cloud my judgment. He straightened slightly, meeting her eyes. Your service honors this institution. Your honesty honors all of us. I thank you for your candor, and I apologize for my disrespect. Audrey nodded once. We all carry our wars differently, sir. No judgment here. Castellane sat slowly. He looked 20 years older than 15 minutes ago. Audrey turned back to her presentation. Her hands were steady. For the next 20 minutes, she walked them through treatment options for moral injury, best practices for supporting combat veterans, resources through the VA, and military mental health services. The officers listened, really listened, taking notes, asking thoughtful questions. The younger ones especially engaged, like they'd been waiting for someone to say what they'd all been thinking. When Audrey finished, the applause was genuine. Officers approached afterward to shake her hand, to share their own stories quietly one-on-one. A Vietnam colonel pulled her aside and told her about his 47 kills, how he'd never told his wife, how he still woke screaming 50 years later. You're braver than I ever was, he said, eyes wet. Thank you for saying what needed to be said. Castellane left without speaking to anyone. His aide mentioned the chapel. By 1600, the room had emptied. Just Audrey and Davis packing equipment. That was something, Davis said quietly. Never seen Castellane speechless. Audrey unplugged her laptop. I probably just ended my career. Maybe. Or maybe you started a conversation 40 years overdue. Davis helped coil cables. Either way, you did good. Garrett would be proud. The name hit harder than expected. Audrey blinked back tears. I hope so, she whispered. They finished packing in silence. Audrey carried everything to her car in late afternoon light. The Pentagon loomed behind her, massive and indifferent. Her phone buzzed. Margaret, heard it went well. Proud of you, sis. Unknown number. Thank you for today. Captain Willis, Army Rangers. Davis. Heads up. Briefing was filmed for records. Don't be surprised if it leaks. Audrey stared at the last message. Then she got in her car and drove home to her daughter. Claire launched herself at Audrey's legs the moment she walked through the door, chattering about school. Something about art class and a boy named Tommy who'd eaten paste. Audrey picked her up, held her close, breathed in the smell of her shampoo and crayons and childhood innocence. How was your talk? Claire asked eventually. It went okay, I think. Did the generals listen? Some of them, maybe. Claire hugged tighter. Uncle Garrett's proud of you. I can feel it. Audrey closed her eyes and tried not to cry. Later that night, after Claire was asleep, Audrey stood before Garrett's rifle on the wall. She hadn't touched it in 3 years, hadn't even opened the case. Her hand moved toward the glass, then stopped. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But for the first time since Kandahar, she thought maybe that was acceptable. Maybe carrying the weight without the rifle was still service, was still honoring everything Garrett had taught her. Maybe 11 was enough. She turned off the light and went to bed, exhausted in ways that transcended physical tiredness. Outside, the Virginia winter night was cold and clear, stars visible between clouds. And somewhere in a chapel, on a military base, a general knelt and prayed for forgiveness. He wasn't certain he deserved. Arlington, Virginia, January 13th, 2026, 05:23 hours. Audrey woke to her phone vibrating against the nightstand. Not the alarm that wasn't set for another hour. This was something else, the insistent buzz of notifications arriving in rapid succession. She reached for it in darkness, squinting at the screen's brightness. 47 missed calls, over 200 texts. Her email showed 347 unread, and at the top, a Twitter alert. You're trending. Her stomach dropped. She sat up fully awake. Opened Twitter with fingers that already knew what they'd find. Top trending topic in the United States. 11 souls. 4.2 million views and climbing. Someone had leaked the Pentagon briefing, not just leaked posted. The entire confrontation with Castellane, every word she'd said, was now playing on phones and laptops nationwide. The video had been edited to 12 minutes. Started with Castellane's kill count question, ended with her line about choosing how to serve. Maximum emotional impact. Perfect for viral spread. Audrey scrolled through comments, chest tightening with each one. This is what real courage looks like. 11 lives that mattered more than 160 that didn't. She killed people, and now she's crying pathetic. My grandfather was a Vietnam sniper. He never complained. This is what's wrong with the military. 11, that's nothing. Stolen valor. This made me cry. Thank you for your service. Women shouldn't be in combat. Period. Every father should show this to his daughter. Thousands of comments. Tens of thousands. People who'd never served, never held a rifle, never made that choice through a scope. All of them with opinions. Her phone rang. Margaret, have you seen it? Her sister asked without preamble. Looking at it now. Audrey, it's everywhere. Fox ran a segment at midnight. CNN an hour ago. Front page of the Washington Post website. Audrey closed her eyes. Christ. Some of it's good. Lots of veterans defending you. There's a thread of Vietnam vets sharing their own stories, but there's also people calling me weak. Yeah. Saying I'm what's wrong with the modern military. That too. Audrey walked to the window. Outside, Arlington was dark. Normal people sleeping. Normal people who'd never carried what she carried. There's more, Margaret said quietly. Someone found our address. It's posted on forums. You might want to be careful. The floor tilted. Claire, Audrey said. Get her out. Come stay with me. Please. Audrey's mind was already racing. School would be impossible. Press waiting. Other parents staring. Claire hearing things no 6-year-old should hear. I'll call you back. Next call, Claire's school. Left a message about illness, few days out. Then, Colonel Davis. Davis answered on the second ring, wide awake. I saw it. How bad? Hard to say. Pentagon's getting calls. Public Affairs drafting a statement. Davis paused. Castellane released his own statement an hour ago. Audrey's hand tightened on the phone. What did he say? Defended you. Said your service was exemplary, and anyone questioning it was questioning him personally. It's helping. But Audrey, this is going to get bigger before it gets smaller. Through the wall, she heard Claire stirring, talking to her stuffed rabbit like she did every morning. I need to keep my daughter safe. Understood. Take whatever time you need. I'll handle things here. Audrey hung up and went to check on Claire. Her daughter was sitting up in bed, clutching her rabbit eyes wide. Mommy, why is your phone making so much noise? Just work stuff, baby. Hey, how would you like to take a few days off school? Visit Aunt Margaret. Claire's face lit up. Really? Can I bring Mr. Hobbs? Of course. As Claire chattered about what to pack, Audrey's phone buzzed again. Another text. Another stranger with an opinion about her life. She turned it off completely and focused on her daughter. The rest of the world could wait. January 15th, 2026, Wednesday evening. By Wednesday, the story had metastasized. Audrey was staying at Margaret's house in Fredericksburg, an hour south of Arlington, far enough from the media circus. Safe enough for Claire to play in the backyard without cameras. But the internet didn't respect distance. The hashtag had evolved. 11 Souls spawned a dozen offshoots. Veterans sharing their own kill counts their own PTSD struggles. Female service members posting about harassment. The whole thing had become a referendum on women in combat, on military mental health, on what it meant to serve. Audrey tried to ignore it. Tried to focus on Claire, on normal things, like coloring books and afternoon snacks. But at 11:47 p.m., her phone rang. She'd turned it back on an hour earlier after Claire was asleep, just to check messages, make sure nothing urgent came through. Unfamiliar number. California area code. Audrey almost didn't answer, but something made her thumb accept. Hello, Lieutenant Brennan, young voice. Female, trembling. You don't know me. I'm sorry for calling so late. I didn't know who else to call. Audrey sat straighter. Who is this? My name is Corporal Delaney Hollis. A sob caught in her throat. I'm stationed at Camp Pendleton, Marine Corps, sniper. The name hit like a physical blow. Hollis. Are you? Audrey's mouth went dry. Are you related to Garrett Hollis? He was my uncle. Delaney was crying now, trying to control it, and failing. He talked about you all the time. Before Kandahar. Audrey couldn't breathe. Garrett had mentioned a niece. A girl who wanted to be a Marine like him. But that had been years ago. Delaney, where are you right now? The beach, near base. Wind noise in the background. Waves. I saw your video, the Pentagon one. Okay. The comments. Delaney's voice cracked. They say women can't do this job. That even you with your 11 couldn't handle it. That we're all weak. Audrey's heart was pounding. She stood pacing Margaret's guest room. Talk to me. What's going on? My team won't work with me anymore. They say I'll get them killed, like you got Uncle Garrett killed. The words were knives. That's not true, Audrey said firmly. Your uncle died saving my life. He made a choice. A brave choice. I know that. But they don't care. They won't look at me. And the comments online, they're everywhere. I can't. Delaney's breathing accelerated, ragged. I can't do this anymore. I thought I could. Thought I was strong enough. But I'm not. Audrey heard something in the background. Metal clicking. A sound that made her blood run cold. Delaney, do you have a weapon with you? Silence. Delaney, answer me. Do you have a gun? Uncle Garrett's rifle. The girl's voice was distant now, detached. He left it to me, before his last deployment, like he knew. Audrey's training kicked in. Stay calm. Keep her talking. Connect. I remember that rifle. He let me shoot it once during training. Best I ever handled. He loved it, Delaney whispered. He loved you more. Audrey sat back on the bed, thinking fast. Your uncle was the strongest man I knew. You know what he told me once? What? That asking for help is harder than pulling any trigger. That the bravest thing a soldier can do is admit they're struggling. Delaney's crying intensified. But I'm supposed to be strong. Like him, like you. Strong doesn't mean not breaking. It means knowing when you need support. I'm so tired. I know. But Delaney, listen. Your uncle died saving me. Don't make that sacrifice meaningless by giving up now. How do you keep going? The question was raw, desperate. How do you get up every day, knowing what you've done, what you've seen? Audrey thought about Claire, about the weight, about the rifle on her wall she still couldn't touch. I have a daughter, Claire. She's 6, and every morning she needs me to show her that breaking doesn't mean staying broken forever. I don't have anyone like that. Yes, you do. You have me. The words came before Audrey could second-guess them. Your uncle saved my life. Let me honor that by helping save yours. Delaney went quiet. Audrey could still hear the waves, the wind, her breathing. I need you to do something. Can you do that? What? Put the rifle down. Just set it on the sand beside you. A long pause, then a soft thump. Metal on sand. Good. Audrey's own hands were shaking now. That's good. Now, stay right there. Don't move. Don't touch the rifle. Can you tell me exactly where you are? Delaney gave the location. North Beach, near training facilities. Audrey was already texting Davis, with her other hand explaining. I'm calling the base. They're sending someone to help. And Delaney, I'm flying out tomorrow. First flight I can get. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Your uncle would have done it for me. She kept Delaney on the phone for 2 hours and 14 minutes. Talked about Garrett, about his terrible jokes and his kindness, about the time he'd saved a litter of kittens from a burning building in Fallujah and refused to leave until all 7 were accounted for. By the time base MPs located Delaney and transported her to Naval Medical Center, Audrey had booked a flight to San Diego for morning. Margaret found her at 1 a.m. still on the guest room floor, phone in hand. What happened? Audrey looked up at her sister. Garrett's niece just tried to kill herself because of my video. Margaret sat beside her. That's not your fault. Isn't it I made that speech? Put it out there. And now, a 23-year-old girl almost died because people twisted my words into weapons. The people who did that are responsible, not you. But Audrey wasn't sure she believed it. Naval Medical Center, San Diego, January 16th, 2026. The flight landed at 09:30. Audrey went straight to the hospital. Delaney Hollis was in a private room on the psychiatric ward, wrists bandaged, sedated but awake. She looked exactly like Garrett at 23. Same stubborn chin, same green eyes. Audrey knocked softly. Delaney turned her head, saw her, started crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for being weak. For calling you. For everything. Audrey crossed the room and sat beside the bed. You called for help. That's not weakness. That's the hardest thing a warrior can do. I know. Audrey reached out, took the girl's hand carefully, mindful of bandages. I've been where you are. After Kandahar. After your uncle died. You couldn't look at a rifle for months. Still can't touch one without shaking. Every time I try, I see his face. All the blood. Audrey's voice stayed steady through will alone. Some nights I think about how easy it would be to stop carrying the weight. Delaney's eyes widened. But you didn't. No, because I have Claire. She needs me to show her you can break and still keep going. How do you do it? How do you wake up every day? Audrey thought about that. Really thought. One day at a time. Some days that's all I can manage. Getting through the next 24 hours. Making sure Claire has breakfast and gets to school and knows she's loved. That's enough. It has to be. They sat in silence. Outside, San Diego gleamed in winter sunlight. Normal people living normal lives, never knowing what it costs to keep them safe. Could you train me? Delaney asked suddenly. Like Uncle Garrett trained you? Audrey's instinct was to say no. She couldn't train anyone. Couldn't even hold a rifle herself. But then she looked at Delaney's face. Saw Garrett in her jaw, heard his voice saying everyone deserves a second chance. When you're cleared, when doctors say you're ready, we'll figure it out together. Even though you can't shoot, maybe teaching you will help me remember how. Delaney squeezed her hand. Uncle Garrett said you were the best student he ever had. He was a liar. Audrey managed a small smile, but I loved him anyway. Over the next 2 weeks, Audrey commuted between Virginia and California. Margaret took Claire during trips. Davis arranged emergency leave. And slowly, carefully, Audrey helped Delaney find footing. They didn't shoot. They talked. About trauma and guilt and the weight of taking lives. About the difference between being broken and being in pieces that could be reassembled. The media circus continued. The hashtag evolved and mutated. Politicians weighed in, using Audrey's story for their purposes. She ignored it all. This mattered more. Arlington, Virginia, January 28, 2026. 2 weeks after the leak, Audrey finally returned home for good. Claire launched herself into her arms at the airport, chattering about everything she'd done with Aunt Margaret. Audrey held her daughter close and breathed in the smell of her shampoo. "I missed you, Mommy." "I missed you too, baby girl." They drove home through familiar streets. Everything looked the same but felt different. Audrey kept expecting cameras, reporters, strangers who recognized her. But Arlington was quiet. Inside, the house was exactly as she'd left it. Garrett's rifle on the wall, Isaac's flag in its case, Claire's drawings covering the refrigerator. Audrey's phone buzzed. "Davis, call me when you get a chance. Important." She waited until Claire was watching cartoons, then called back. "How's the Hollis girl?" Davis asked. "Better. Transferring to outpatient next week. Command is supportive, surprisingly." "Good. Listen, I need to talk to you about something." The tone made Audrey's stomach tighten. "What's going on?" "Major General Patricia Hawks called yesterday. She commands Joint Special Operations Task Force Phoenix. I know who she is. She wants to meet with you, in person, says it's urgent." Audrey sat at the kitchen table. "Why?" Davis hesitated. "There's a situation in Syria. ISIS-K affiliate targeting female military contractors. 4 dead in 6 weeks, 2 captured." "That's awful. But what does it have to do with me?" "The insurgents are using a female sniper for propaganda. They call her the Widow of Aleppo. 14 confirmed kills, all women, all filmed for recruitment." Audrey's chest felt tight. "Marissa, I'm not operational. I can't even..." "Hawks knows. She doesn't need you to shoot. She needs you to help the task force understand how to counter a female sniper. Psychology, tactics, everything you know. There are hundreds more qualified. Maybe. But you're the one everyone's talking about right now. The one who understands what it's like to carry the weight. Hawks thinks that matters." Audrey closed her eyes. Through the wall, Claire laughed at her cartoons. Normal. Safe. "There's something else," Davis said quietly. Hawks pulled the intel file on the widow's spotter, ballistics analysis operational patterns. And the spotter's name is Hamza al-Rashid. He was operating in Kandahar in October 2022. Same sector where Garrett Hollis was killed. Audrey's world tilted. Intel suggests he's the one who fired the RPG that hit your position. The one that killed Garrett. The room was too small. Not enough air. "Audrey, you there?" "Yeah." Her voice sounded distant. "I'm here. Hawks wants to brief you in person. No pressure. If you say no, she'll understand." But this is the man who killed Garrett." "Yes." Audrey stared at the rifle on the wall, the one she hadn't touched in 3 years. "When does she want to meet?" "Tomorrow. Pentagon. 0900. I'll be there." After hanging up, Audrey sat at the table for a long time. Claire came in, eventually climbed into her lap. "You look sad, Mommy. Just thinking about work? Is it about Uncle Garrett?" Audrey looked at her daughter, 6 years old and already too perceptive. "Yeah, baby. It's about Uncle Garrett. Are you going away again?" The question cut deep. Audrey thought about Hamza al-Rashid, about the chance to bring justice for the man who'd saved her life, about leaving Claire again. "I don't know yet. Would you be okay if I did?" Claire was quiet, then hugged tighter. "As long as you come home. I'll always come home to you. I promise." That night, after Claire was asleep, Audrey stood before Garrett's rifle. She reached out, hand trembling, touched the glass. Case of toe. Still couldn't open it. Not yet. Pentagon, January 29th, 2026. 100. Major General Patricia Hawks was 59, with silver hair and eyes that had witnessed too much. She met Audrey in a secure briefing room. Just the two of them. No aides, no witnesses. Thank you for coming, Lieutenant. Hawks gestured to a chair. I know this is difficult timing. Colonel Davis explained the situation. Did she explain all of it? Audrey sat. She mentioned the widow and Hamza al-Rashid. Hawks pulled out a tablet, brought up photos. The widow's real name is Amira Kassab, former Syrian army sniper. 41. Exceptional skill. We estimate 14 confirmed kills, but the real number could be higher. She swiped to the next photo. A man, late 30s, scarred face, dead eyes. Hamza al-Rashid, 42. Syrian national, trained by Assad's special forces. Expert with explosives and long-range weapons. He's Kassab's spotter and handler. Hawks looked at Audrey directly. Ballistics and operational analysis puts him in Kandahar in October 2022. The RPG that hit your position matches his signature. The tactics match his profile. You're certain, 93%. As certain as we can be without direct confirmation. Audrey stared at the photo. This was the man who'd killed Garrett, who'd robbed her of her mentor, her friend, the person who'd taught her everything that mattered. What do you need from me? Honestly, I'm not sure yet. Hawks set the tablet down. The task force deploying to Syria includes 3 female operators. They're good, well-trained, but they've never faced a female adversary, never had to think about the psychological warfare aspect. And you think I can help with that? I think you understand things they don't. About the weight of those shots, about what drives someone to keep pulling the trigger. Hawks paused. I read your briefing transcript, all of it. You're right about moral injury, about the cost we don't discuss. I can't shoot anymore. Every time I try, I freeze. I know, I'm not asking you to engage, just advise. Help the team understand what they're facing. Audrey thought about Delaney. About 2 weeks, spent talking through trauma, about how teaching had helped her process things she'd never faced alone. How long would the deployment be? 6 weeks, maybe 8. Forward operating base in northern Syria, safe as these things get. And al-Rashid, if the opportunity presents, to neutralize him. Hawks met her eyes. If he's in our sights, we take him. That's not revenge, Lieutenant. That's justice for every American he's killed, including Garrett. Audrey walked to the window. Outside the Pentagon parking lot stretched endlessly. Cars and concrete, and people who'd never make the choices she'd made. I need to think about it. I have a daughter. I understand. Take 24 hours. But Audrey, Hawks stood too. This is a chance to finish what Garrett started, to make sure his sacrifice meant something. After the meeting, Audrey drove aimlessly for an hour. She ended up at Arlington National Cemetery. Isaac's grave was in Section 60, where they buried the recent war's dead. She knelt in cold grass and traced his name on the headstone. I don't know what to do, she whispered. Claire needs me here, but Garrett he needs justice. And maybe I need to face this, to prove I'm not completely broken. Wind rustled through trees. No answer came. Audrey stayed until her knees ached, then drove home. Claire was at Margaret's for the day. The house was empty and quiet, too quiet. Audrey went to her bedroom and stood before Garrett's rifle. This time she opened the case. Her hands shook as she lifted the M45 from its mount. The weight was familiar, comforting. She'd fired thousands of rounds through this rifle, knew every quirk, every slight deviation. She brought it to her shoulder, aimed at the far wall, put her finger on the trigger. The flashback hit immediately. Garrett's blood, the screaming, the smell of burning flesh from the market. Her hands started shaking so badly she had to set the rifle down. She sank to the floor back against the bed and cried until she had nothing left. At 1800 hours, she called Hawks. I'll do it. I'll deploy with your task force. You're sure? No, but I'm going anyway. Hawks was quiet for a moment. We leave in 5 days. I'll send details. After hanging up, Audrey called Margaret. I need you to take Claire for a while, 6 to 8 weeks. Where are you going? Syria. Margaret's sharp intake was audible. Audrey, you can't even... I know what I can and can't do, but this is something I have to face. Does Claire know? Not yet. I'll tell her tomorrow. That night, Audrey lay awake thinking about Hamza al-Rashid, about the chance to look through a scope at the man who'd killed Garrett, knowing she probably wouldn't be able to pull the trigger, even if she had the shot. January 30th, 2026, evening. The hardest conversation of Audrey's life happened on a Tuesday evening, sitting on Claire's bed with her daughter in her lap. Mommy has to go away for work. For a little while. Claire's face crumpled. How long? Maybe 2 months. Maybe less. You'll stay with Aunt Margaret. Is it dangerous? Audrey had promised herself she'd never lie to her daughter. Yes, a little bit. Like when Daddy went away. The question was a knife to the heart. Not exactly like that. I'll be safe. I promise. You promise? Really promise? Audrey held her daughter's face in her hands. Really promise. Cross my heart. Claire was crying now. I don't want you to go. I know, baby. I know. But there are people who need help. And Mommy has special training that can keep them safe. Like you helped Uncle Garrett's niece. Exactly like that. Claire was quiet for a long moment. Then she said in a small voice, Will you have to shoot people again? Audrey closed her eyes. I don't think so. I'm mostly going to teach and help other soldiers. Good, I don't like when you're sad about the people you shot. Out of the mouths of children, Audrey held her daughter until she fell asleep, then sat watching her breathe for another hour. The next 3 days were a blur. Medical clearances, equipment requisitions, briefings with the task force. Davis pulled strings to expedite everything. On the 4th day, Audrey took Claire to Margaret's house. Her daughter clung to her at the door, refusing to let go. You'll come back, Claire asked for the 100th time. I'll come back, and you'll be safe as I can be. Finally, Margaret gently pried Claire away. Audrey walked to her car before she could break down completely. She was halfway to the airport when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Saw the news about your deployment. The old lions don't change stripes easily, but watching you handle Castellane changed something in me. Good hunting, Lieutenant. Come home safe. We need voices like yours. General Victor Castellane. Audrey stared at the message. Then she put the phone away and drove to meet her new team. To face the man who'd killed her mentor. To find out if she was still a warrior or just someone carrying the memory of what she used to be. The question would be answered in blood and sand and the weight of decisions no one should have to make. But for now, she was just a soldier, deploying one more time. Maybe the last time. Only the desert would tell. Forward, Operating Base, Atlas, Northern Syria, February 8th, 2026. The C-130 touched down on the dusty airstrip at OOE 300 local. Audrey had forgotten how the desert smelled at night. Dust and diesel fuel and something ancient underneath. The air was cold, colder than most expected Syria to be in February. She pulled her jacket tighter and shouldered her pack. 14 operators filed off the aircraft in silence. They'd flown from Ramstein Air Base in Germany 9 hours with minimal conversation. Special operators didn't chat. They conserved energy, slept when possible, prepared mentally for what came next. Audrey was the only one who hadn't slept at all. A Humvee waited at the tarmac's edge, headlights cutting through darkness. A figure stepped out as they approached. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the easy confidence of someone who'd spent decades in combat zones. Welcome to Atlas, the man said. His voice was gravelly, worn smooth by years of shouting orders. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Isaac Reeves, Task Force Commander. Grab your gear and mount up. We'll do formal introductions after you've had hot chow and rack time. The team loaded into 3 vehicles. Audrey found herself in the second Humvee, squeezed between 2 younger operators who looked barely old enough to shave. They didn't speak to her, didn't make eye contact. She was used to it. The video had made her famous in all the wrong ways. Half the military saw her as a hero. The other half saw her as evidence that women couldn't handle combat, that they broke under pressure. The drive to the main compound took 20 minutes through darkened desert. No lights except headlamps. No sound except engine and tires on hardpack. FOB. Atlas was smaller than expected. A collection of concrete buildings surrounded by HESCO barriers and concertina wire. Guard towers at each corner. A small motor pool. Nothing fancy, just functional. Reeves led them to a long, low building, serving as operations center. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed. A dozen monitors displayed drone footage, satellite imagery, real-time intelligence updates. Briefing at 0700, Reeves announced. Until then, get settled. Barracks through that door. Chow halls open 24 hours. Questions? No one spoke. Good. Dismissed. The team dispersed. Audrey followed others to the barracks, a utilitarian space lined with bunks and wall lockers. She claimed an empty rack in the far corner and started unpacking. Lieutenant Brennan? She turned. A woman stood in the doorway. Late 20s, athletic build, dark hair, in a regulation bun. Captain's bars. I'm Captain Emma Shaw, combat medic. She extended her hand. Just wanted to introduce myself. I've been looking forward to working with you. Audrey shook her hand. Thanks. Good to meet you. Your briefing video meant a lot to a lot of us. Before Audrey could respond, another voice cut in. Meant a lot to some of us anyway. A man stepped around Shaw. Compact, muscular, with swagger that came from too many confirmed kills and not enough self-awareness. His name tape read Voss. Captain Ryan Voss, Marine sniper, 27 confirmed. I worked with Delaney Hollis at Pendleton before she went crazy. Audrey's jaw tightened. Corporal Hollis is recovering well. Sure she is. That why she tried to eat a bullet? Voss smiled without humor. Look, Lieutenant, I'm sure you're nice. But this is a combat mission. We need operators who can pull the trigger, not advisors who freeze when it matters. Captain Voss. Shaw's voice was sharp. That's enough. Voss held Audrey's gaze another moment, then shrugged. Just saying what everyone's thinking. He walked away. Shaw turned back expression, apologetic. He's an asshole, but he's good at his job. Try not to let him get to you. I won't. But as Audrey lay in her bunk, an hour later, staring at the ceiling, Voss's words echoed. Advisors who freeze when it matters. He wasn't wrong. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. The dreams came immediately. Garrett's face, the market, the blood. At 0600, she gave up and went to find coffee. 700 hours, Operations Center. The briefing room was cramped and hot-packed with 14 operators shoulder to shoulder. Reeves stood at the front beside a monitor displaying a map of northern Syria. Red circles marked known insurgent positions. Blue triangles showed coalition forces. Listen up. Most of you know why you're here, but let's review. He clicked a remote. The screen changed to a photograph of a woman in tactical gear holding a rifle. Middle-aged, hard eyes, no smile. Amira Kassab, also known as the Widow of Aleppo. Former Syrian Army Sniper 41. Defected to ISIS-K 2 years ago after her family was killed in a coalition airstrike. She's personally responsible for 14 confirmed kills, all female targets. Aid workers, contractors, coalition personnel. Reeves clicked again. Video footage appeared. Grainy handheld. A woman in a burqa moving through a market. Then a sharp crack, and the woman crumpled. The video cut to a man in a balaclava, speaking Arabic. Subtitles appeared. The widow sends a message to the infidel women who defile our lands. You are not safe. You will never be safe. Several operators shifted. Kassab is running a propaganda operation. Every kill is filmed and distributed online. Recruitment tool for ISIS-K. They're using her to prove that women fighting them is futile. He clicked to another photo. A man, late 30s, scarred face. Hamza al-Rashid, Kassab's spotter and handler, expert with explosives and long-range weapons. Intelligence suggests he's been operating since the early Syrian conflict. At least 40 confirmed kills, maybe more. Audrey stared at the photo. This was the man, the one who'd killed Garrett. Al-Rashid was in Afghanistan from 2019 to 2022, worked with Taliban affiliates, then moved back to Syria when ISIS-K started recruiting. He looked directly at Audrey. Ballistics analysis places him in Kandahar in October 2022. The RPG signature matches an attack that killed Staff Sergeant Garrett Hollis and wounded Lieutenant Brennan here. Every eye turned to her. Audrey kept her expression neutral. Understood, sir. Reeves nodded. Current intelligence puts Kassab and Al-Rashid in a specific sector, approximately 30 clicks from our position. They're setting up for another operation. We intercepted communications suggesting they're planning to hit an aid convoy scheduled to move through the area tomorrow. He clicked to a tactical map. Our mission is simple. Protect the convoy, and if possible, eliminate the threat. Kassab and Al-Rashid are high-value targets. Taking them off the board would save lives and deal a significant blow to ISIS-K propaganda. Captain Shaw raised her hand. Rules of engagement, sir. Standard. Positive ID required. Minimize civilian casualties. But if you have a clean shot on either primary target, you are cleared hot. Voss spoke up. Timeline? Wheels up at 1300. We establish overwatch positions before dawn tomorrow. Convoy moves at 0800. Kassab will likely position somewhere along the route. Our job is to find her first. Reeves looked at Audrey. Lieutenant Brennan is here as tactical advisor. She has extensive experience with urban sniper operations and psychological aspects of long-range engagement. Use her expertise. Several operators nodded. Voss rolled his eyes. After the briefing, Audrey stayed behind. Reeves was reviewing notes on his tablet. Sir, can I speak with you? He looked up. About Al-Rashid. Yes, sir. I want to be clear about my capabilities. I haven't been able to fire a weapon since Kandahar. If the situation requires, I know. Reeves interrupted. General Hawks briefed me fully. You're here to advise, not engage. But, Lieutenant, he set down the tablet. If it comes down to you or him, I need to know you'll pull the trigger. Audrey thought about her shaking hands, about the frozen trigger finger, about 3 years of trying and failing. I don't know if I can, sir. Reeves studied her face. Honest answer. I respect that. Just don't get anyone killed because of it. I won't, sir. She hoped it was true. 1,500 hours, en route to Overwatch position. The team deployed in 4 vehicles, taking a circuitous route through desert to avoid known insurgent positions. Audrey rode with Shaw and a young lieutenant named Park, who handled intelligence. The conversation was minimal, professional. Shaw asked a few questions about sniper tactics in urban environments. Park wanted to know about psychological profiling of enemy snipers. Audrey answered as best she could, but her mind kept drifting to the rifle case secured in the back of the Humvee. Garrett's M40A5. She'd brought it, despite knowing she probably couldn't use it. But deploying without it felt like leaving part of him behind. They reached the Overwatch position 2 hours before sunset. A 3-story building on the edge of a small town, abandoned since fighting had rolled through years ago. Bullet holes pocked the walls. The roof was partially collapsed on the south side, but the north side was intact, and it had clear line of sight to the convoy route 2,000 meters away. Perfect for a sniper. Set up on the top floor, Reeves ordered. Overlapping fields of fire. Shaw, you're with Brennan. Park established comms. Everyone else defensive positions. The team moved with practiced efficiency. Within 30 minutes, they'd transformed the building into a fortified position. Audrey climbed to the top floor with Shaw and the rifle case. The space was open to sky on one side, but enough roof remained for concealment. Shaw set up medical gear in the corner, while Audrey positioned at the north-facing window. Desert stretched before them. Rocky, barren, hostile. The convoy route was clearly visible, a dirt road cutting through landscape like a scar. Somewhere out there, Amira Kassab was setting up her own position, and Hamza al-Rashid was spotting for her. You okay? Shaw asked quietly. Audrey realized she'd been staring at the rifle case for several minutes without moving. Yeah, just thinking. About Sergeant Hollis, always about Garrett. Audrey opened the case slowly. The rifle gleamed in fading light. He gave me this 6 months before he died. Said I'd earned it. And you haven't fired it since Kandahar. Can't. Every time I try, I freeze. Shaw was quiet. What does that feel like? Like drowning. Like my body knows pulling that trigger will kill me. Audrey traced the stock. Logically, I know it's PTSD, trauma response. But knowing doesn't help. Have you tried therapy? Hours of it. Helped with some things, not this. Shaw started to respond, but her radio crackled. All positions, this is actual. Reeves's voice came through. Intel update. Intercepted communications suggest Kassab is already in position. Repeat, Widow is in the field. Stay alert. Audrey's pulse quickened. She lifted binoculars and scanned terrain. Nothing. Just rocks and sand and failing light. She's good, Audrey said quietly. If she's out there, we won't spot her until she wants us to. How do you know? Because that's what I would do. They settled in for a long night. Shaw tried to make conversation, but Audrey was too focused on the landscape, too focused on knowing that somewhere in that darkness, the man who'd killed Garrett was breathing the same air. At 2200, Park climbed up with rations and water. Convoys on schedule for 0800. 6 vehicles, 12 personnel total. 3 are female contractors. Perfect targets, Audrey muttered. We'll keep them safe, Shaw said, with more confidence than the situation warranted. Audrey didn't respond. She was watching the desert waiting for dawn, waiting to see if she was still a warrior or just a broken woman with a rifle she couldn't fire. February 9th, 2026, 05:47 hours. Desert dawn came slowly, bleeding red across the horizon. Audrey hadn't slept. Shaw had dozed around 0300, but Audrey had stayed at the window, watching, waiting. Her hands rested on Garrett's rifle, not aiming, just touching. Trying to remember what it felt like when pulling the trigger didn't terrify her. At 0600, Reeves checked in via radio. All positions report. One by one, the team confirmed readiness. No movement spotted, no contact. But Audrey's instinct screamed that something was wrong. Shaw, she said quietly, wake up. The medic stirred, instantly alert. What is it? Look at the terrain. 3 o'clock from the convoy route. That cluster of rocks. Shaw raised binoculars. I don't see anything. Exactly. Every other rock formation has birds, morning feeders, but not that one. Understanding dawned on Shaw's face. Someone's there. Someone's been there all night. Audrey keyed her radio. Actual, this is Brennan. Possible contact at grid reference. She read off coordinates. Recommend drone surveillance before convoy enters kill zone. Pause. Then Reeves, copy, stand by. 10 minutes later, drone footage appeared on Park's tablet. She climbed up and showed them. The rock formation was hollow, and inside, barely visible, even with thermal imaging, 2 figures lay prone, one with a rifle, one with a spotting scope. That's them, Audrey said. Her voice was steady, but her hands had started shaking. Kassab and Al-Rashid. Park radioed Reeves. Within minutes, the plan changed. The convoy would proceed as scheduled, but now it was bait. The real objective was eliminating the threat before Kassab could fire. Brennan, can you make that shot? Reeves asked over radio. Audrey looked at the rangefinder. 1,650 meters. Extreme range. Difficult even in perfect conditions. And she hadn't pulled a trigger in 3 years. Negative, sir. I'm not operational. Voss, your primary shooter. Brennan, talk him through it. Voss's voice came through with barely concealed smugness. Copy that. I've got this. But Audrey was still staring through her scope at the rock formation. At Hamza al-Rashid. The man who'd killed Garrett was 892 meters away. 5 hours. The convoy appeared on the horizon, right on schedule. 6 vehicles moving slowly through the desert dust plumes marking their progress. Audrey watched through her scope as Kassab shifted position slightly. Getting ready. Wind holding at 12 miles per hour left to right, she reported into her radio. Temperature rising, mirage starting to form. Voss was positioned 1 floor below his own rifle, trained on target. I've got her, just waiting for green light. But Audrey's scope wasn't on Kassab. It was on Al-Rashid. She could see him clearly now. The scarred face, the way he moved his hands as he calculated range and windage for Kassab. The man who'd fired the RPG that killed Garrett. Her finger found the trigger. Actual, this is Brennan. Her voice surprised her with its calmness. I have secondary target. Request permission to engage. Pause. Too long. Brennan, you said you weren't operational. I'm not, but I have the shot. Another pause. She could almost hear Reeves's internal debate. Voss has primary. You have secondary. Do not fire until Voss takes his shot. Acknowledge. Copy. Holding for primary. Shaw had moved beside her medical gear ready. Audrey, are you sure about this? No. She wasn't sure about anything. But Garrett's voice was in her head. You make the shot because no one else can. Convoy entering kill zone in 30 seconds, Park announced. Audrey's fingers stayed on the trigger. Her hands were shaking, but she was used to that now. Through her scope, she saw Al-Rashid raise his hand, giving Kassab final corrections. 20 seconds, Park said. Voss, I have the shot. Clear to engage. Reeves, wait for it. Wait. 15 seconds. Audrey's hands steadied. The shaking stopped. Everything narrowed to scope target, the space between intention and action. 10 seconds. Kassab's finger moved to her trigger. 5 seconds. All units weapons free, Reeves commanded. Take them down. 2 shots fired simultaneously. Audrey squeezed the trigger on Garrett's rifle for the first time in 3 years and 3 months. The recoil was familiar, comforting, like coming home. Through the scope, she watched impact. 892 meters. Hamza al-Rashid's head snapped back. He collapsed. A heartbeat later, Voss's shot reached Kassab, 1,650 meters, threading through a 6-inch gap between rocks. Perfect hit. Kassab went down. Splash 2, Voss reported. Both targets eliminated. The convoy continued moving, occupants never knowing how close they'd come to death. Audrey stayed frozen behind the rifle, staring at al-Rashid's body. She'd done it. She'd pulled the trigger for Garrett, and she felt nothing. No satisfaction, no revenge euphoria. Just the same emptiness she always felt after a kill. Except this time there was something else underneath. Peace. "Brennan, you okay?" Shaw's voice seemed far away. "Yeah," Audrey said. She was surprised to find it was true. "Yeah, I'm okay." Reeves's voice crackled. "Outstanding work. Prepare for extraction. We're pulling out before they can mount counter-response." The team moved quickly, packing gear. Audrey disassembled Garrett's rifle with steady hands. 12 kills now. But as they loaded into Humvees and started the drive back to Atlas, Audrey realized something had broken inside her. Not broken as in damaged, broken as in freed. The weight was still there, would always be there, but it didn't crush her anymore. She'd faced the man who killed Garrett and taken the shot, and survived it. Forward Operating Base Atlas, 1823 hours. The celebration in operations was subdued but genuine. Eliminating Kassab and al-Rashid was significant victory. The propaganda value alone would hurt ISIS-K recruitment for months. Voss was holding court, recounting his 1650 shot to anyone who'd listen. Several operators congratulated him. A few came to Audrey as well. "Nice shooting, Lieutenant," one sergeant said. "Hell of a follow-up shot." Shaw hugged her. "You did it. I knew you could." Even Park offered quiet, "Well done." But Audrey felt disconnected. She kept seeing al-Rashid's face through the scope, kept feeling the rifle's recoil. At 1900, she excused herself and walked outside. Desert night was cold and clear. Stars everywhere. The same stars Garrett had died under. "Thought I'd find you out here." She turned. Reeves stood in the doorway, 2 bottles of water in his hands. He offered her one. "You did good today." "Thank you, sir." "That shot on al-Rashid, 892 in crosswind. Not easy." "No, sir." Reeves was quiet. "General Hawks told me you hadn't fired a weapon since Kandahar. That you froze every time you tried." "Yes, sir, until today." "What changed?" Audrey thought about that. Really thought. "I stopped trying to be the person I was before. Stopped thinking I had to be unbreakable to be useful. Garrett died saving me. Al-Rashid killed him. I couldn't bring Garrett back. But I could make sure his death meant something. And now I'm going home to my daughter. Going to teach Delaney Hollis how to be a sniper. Going to keep talking about the weight we carry, whether people want to hear it or not." Reeves nodded slowly. "The world needs more soldiers like you, Lieutenant. Ones who understand that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about what you do after." He headed back inside, leaving Audrey alone with the stars. She pulled out her phone. No signal this far out, but she'd written messages earlier to send when she got back to civilization. To Claire. "Mission accomplished. Coming home soon. I love you." To Delaney. "I pulled the trigger today. We're going to be okay." And to Castellane, who'd somehow become an unlikely ally. "Thank you for believing I was still a warrior, even when I didn't believe it myself." She saved the messages and looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, Garrett and Isaac were watching. She hoped they were proud. Quantico, Virginia, May 15th, 2026, 3 months later. The ceremony was held in the base chapel, small and intimate. Audrey stood at the front in dress blues, newly promoted to captain. The silver star on her chest was still shiny, presented an hour ago by Major General Hawks herself, for actions in Syria, for the shot that eliminated a high-value target, for courage under fire. But Audrey knew what it really recognized: the courage to keep going after breaking, to pull a trigger when every instinct screamed to run, to choose service over safety. General Castellane sat in the 3rd row, face unreadable. After the ceremony, he approached. "Captain Brennan." He extended his hand. Congratulations. She shook it. Thank you, sir. I owe you an apology, a real one, not just the public statement I made in January. You already apologized, General. Not adequately. He looked uncomfortable, a 3-star general, struggling with words. My son's last letter home was about you, about how you saved his patrol, about how you were the real deal, and I needed to update my thinking. Audrey felt her throat tighten. He was a good man, sir. He was, and he lived 5 extra days because of you. Got to call home one more time. Tell me he loved me. Castellane's voice cracked. I have that because of you. And I responded by trying to humiliate you in front of your peers. You were protecting your beliefs, sir. I understand. Beliefs that needed changing. He straightened. I'm establishing a foundation for female combat veterans. Mental health support, transition assistance training programs. I want to call it the Garrett Hollis Foundation. Audrey's eyes widened. Sir, he gave his life for you. You gave your expertise to save others like you. Seemed fitting. He paused. I'd like you to be director, if you're interested. I don't know what to say. Say yes. We need voices like yours. People who understand the cost and keep serving anyway. Before Audrey could respond, commotion at the chapel's back drew their attention. Delaney Hollis burst through the doors, out of breath and grinning. She'd driven straight from Camp Pendleton, still in uniform, still carrying the confidence of someone who'd found their purpose. Sorry I'm late, Delaney called. Then she saw Castelaine and snapped to attention. Sir, at ease, Corporal. Castelaine smiled. Good to see you looking well. Delaney crossed to Audrey and hugged her. Congratulations, Captain. Thanks. When did you get in? 2 hours ago. Couldn't miss this. She pulled back, eyes shining. I qualified expert on the range last week. Top score in my class. Your uncle would be proud. I know. I felt him there. Delaney glanced at Castelaine. Sir, if you're serious about that foundation, I'd like to volunteer. Maybe as assistant instructor. Castelaine looked between the two women. I think that can be arranged. After he left, Audrey and Delaney walked outside into spring sunshine. Claire was playing on the chapel lawn with Margaret, chasing butterflies and laughing. When she saw Audrey, she came running. Mommy, you have a new medal. Audrey scooped her up. I do. Pretty shiny, huh? It's beautiful. Claire touched the silver star reverently. Is this because you were brave? Something like that. Like Uncle Garrett and Daddy. Yeah, baby, like them. Delaney watched them with soft eyes. She looks just like you. She looks like her father. Audrey set Claire down. Go play with Aunt Margaret for a few more minutes, okay? Claire ran off. Audrey and Delaney sat on a nearby bench. How are you really doing? Audrey asked. Better. Good days and bad days, but more good than bad now. Delaney was quiet. The shooting helps, having a purpose, knowing Uncle Garrett's legacy continues. He'd be proud of you, both of us. I know. Delaney looked at her. Are you going to take the director position? I think so. Feels right. Good, because I already told my CO I'm putting in for transfer to Quantico. Audrey laughed. Presumptuous. Learned from the best. They sat in comfortable silence watching Claire play. 2 broken soldiers who'd found a way to keep serving. 2 women carrying weight that would never fully lift, but had learned to distribute it across shoulders strong enough to bear it. Hey, Audrey, Delaney said quietly. Yeah, thank you for that night on the beach, for not giving up on me. Thank you for calling, for giving me a reason to keep going. We saved each other. Yeah, we did. Garrett Hollis Foundation Training Center, Quantico. September 2026. 6 months after the ceremony, the foundation opened its doors. The facility was state-of-the-art. Indoor and outdoor ranges, classrooms, mental health offices staffed with therapists specializing in combat trauma, a residential wing for veterans transitioning out of service. And at the center, a memorial wall. Photographs of fallen warriors, men and women who'd given everything. Each photo accompanied by a quote from someone they'd served with. Garrett's photo was in the place of honor. Staff Sergeant Garrett Hollis, 1984-2022. Below it, the words he'd died saying. Audrey stood before the wall on opening day, surrounded by the first class of students, 15 female veterans, some Army, some Marines, some Navy, all struggling with the transition from warrior to civilian. all carrying weight they didn't know how to put down. "Welcome," Audrey said. Her voice was strong, confident, the voice of someone who'd walked through fire and come out still standing. "This foundation exists for one reason: to help you carry the weight. Not to take it away because it's yours and it matters, but to help you bear it." She gestured to the memorial wall. "These warriors gave everything. We're still here. That means we have work to do." The students listened, some with tears already forming. "Over the next 12 weeks, we're going to talk about trauma, about moral injury, about the cost of service, and how to integrate it into life after." Audrey paused. "We're also going to shoot. Some of you haven't touched a weapon since separating. Some of you can't. That's okay. We'll work through it together." A hand raised. A young woman, mid-20s, looking lost. "What if we can't hit? What if we're too broken?" Audrey smiled. "Then you'll be in good company. I didn't fire a weapon for 3 years after my last deployment. Couldn't even touch a rifle without shaking." "What changed?" "I stopped trying to be unbroken. Started accepting that the cracks were part of who I am now." She looked at each student. "You're not broken. You're warriors who've been to war. There's a difference." After orientation, Delaney pulled her aside. "Good speech." "Thanks. Felt right." They walked to Audrey's office, a small space with a window overlooking the ranges. On the wall, Garrett's M40A5 was mounted in a new case. The plaque read, "Captain Audrey Brennan. 17 confirmed. Countless saved." "You added to it," Delaney noticed. "Yeah. Seemed dishonest to stop at 11. I made 5 more shots in Syria." "Any regrets?" Audrey thought about al-Rashid, about the weight of that 12th kill, about 13 through 17 as she'd covered her team's extraction. No regrets, just awareness of the cost. And it's worth it. Has to be. Otherwise, what did they die for? A knock interrupted them. Castellane stood there, looking older than his 62 years. "Sir," Audrey said, surprised. "Didn't expect you today. Had a meeting at the Pentagon. Thought I'd stop by." He looked around the office at the memorial wall, visible through the window. "How's the first day?" "Good. Overwhelming for some students, but good." Castellane nodded. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. "This is for you." Audrey opened it. Inside was a letter, handwritten. It was from Captain Nathaniel Castellane, written September 2022, 2 weeks before his death. The letter described the ambush, the IED triggerman, the female sniper who'd saved his entire patrol. "She's the real deal, Dad. Dropped a target at 967 meters in a sandstorm. Impossible shot. Saved all 12 of us. Her name's Lieutenant Brennan. If you ever meet her, thank her for me." Audrey's vision blurred with tears. "I found it going through his things," Castellane said quietly. "Thought you should have it. Sir, you gave me 5 more days with my son. Gave him time to write this letter. Time to say goodbye." The general's voice was thick. "I can never repay that, but I can make sure other warriors like you get the support they deserve." He left before Audrey could respond. She sat at her desk, reading Nathaniel's letter over and over, carrying the weight of knowing she'd saved him, even though she couldn't save him from the ambush that came later. Carrying the weight of Garrett and al-Rashid and the 11 before Syria. Carrying it all, but not alone anymore. Arlington, Virginia, December 2026. Christmas morning. Audrey woke to Claire jumping on her bed. "Presents, Mommy Santa came." 7 years old now, growing so fast it hurt. They opened gifts in their pajamas, tree lights twinkling in pre-dawn darkness. Claire got books and art supplies and a toy rabbit that looked like Mr. Hops. Audrey got drawings from Claire, a scarf from Margaret, a card from Delaney, and a package from Castellane. Inside was a photograph. Nathaniel, in his uniform, smiling alive. A note attached for your memorial wall. He should be remembered alongside Garrett. They both saved you. You saved them. That's what warriors do. Audrey set the photo beside Garrett's on her mantel. 2 men who'd given her everything, who'd believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Claire asked. "Happy tears, baby. Just remembering people I loved. Uncle Garrett and Captain Castellane. Yeah, and your daddy too." Claire hugged her. They're all watching us from heaven. I think you're right. That afternoon, they drove to Quantico. The foundation was closed for holidays, but Audrey had a key. She took Claire to the range where they'd set up a small .22 rifle for beginners. You ready to learn? Audrey asked. Claire nodded, eyes wide. Audrey showed her daughter how to hold the rifle, how to breathe, how to aim. This is a tool, a powerful tool. You hope you never need it for real. But if you do, you'll be ready. Claire's first shot hit the paper target. Off center, but a hit. I did it, she squealed. You did. Your dad would be proud. So would Uncle Garrett. They shot for an hour, Claire getting better with each round. When they finished, Audrey cleaned the rifle while Claire explored. Mommy, look. Claire was standing before the memorial wall, pointing at Garrett's photo. He looks nice. He was. The best man I knew, except for your dad. What does it mean? Audrey knelt beside her daughter. How to explain to a 7-year-old? It means the choices we make matter, that we have to think about consequences, that being strong means being responsible. Claire considered this. Then, are you strong, Mommy? I'm trying to be. I think you are. You help people, like the ladies at your foundation. Thank you, baby. As they drove home through winter darkness, Audrey thought about the journey. From 11 kills to 17. From broken and frozen to functional and teaching. From alone with her weight to surrounded by others carrying their own. She thought about Garrett's last words, not your fault. You made the shot. She'd made the shot. Again and again, when it mattered most. And she'd survived it. Not unscathed, not unchanged, but whole in a new way. The weight of 11 had become 17, but it had also become hundreds saved. Delaney pulled back from the edge, students learning to carry their burdens, a foundation helping countless others. The weight hadn't gotten lighter, but her shoulders had gotten stronger, and she wasn't carrying it alone anymore. As they pulled into the driveway, Claire asked one more question. Mommy, if you could go back and not shoot those people, would you? Audrey turned off the engine and looked at her daughter. No, because every one of those shots saved someone else. Someone who got to go home to their family. Someone who got to live. Like you came home to me, exactly like that. Claire hugged her. I'm glad you came home. Me too, baby. Me too. Inside, Audrey made hot chocolate, and they watched Christmas movies until Claire fell asleep on the couch. Audrey carried her daughter to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Then she went to her own room and stood before the photos on her mantle. Garrett, Nathaniel, Isaac. 3 warriors who'd shaped who she was. Thank you, she whispered, for teaching me that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about what you build after. She turned off the light and went to bed. Tomorrow she'd go back to the foundation, back to helping others, back to the work that mattered, because Garrett was right. But so did every life saved, every hand extended, every broken warrior helped back to their feet. And in the end, that was the weight worth carrying. Not the 11 she'd taken, but the hundreds she'd saved, and the countless more she'd helped through teaching, through leading through, showing that breaking didn't mean staying broken. That was her legacy. And it was enough.